मानुषी संवाद में आप सबका स्वागत है। वेलकम टू दिस एडिशन ऑफ मानुषी संवाद। आज हमारे साथ डॉक्टर वैद्यनाथन जुड़ रहे हैं रशिया यूक्रेन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को लेके। और आप जानते ही हैं डॉक्टर वैद्यनाथन हमेशा एक नया पर्सपेक्टिव किस हर इशू पे लेके आते हैं। तो आज उन्होंने टॉपिक चुना है, ये उन्होंने ही चुना है, आउटसोर्स्ड वॉर्स एंड चेंजिंग ग्लोबल ऑर्डर। तो ये वॉर की कैसे आउटसोर्सिंग हो रही है, हालांकि ये इतिहास में पुराना है। अंग्रेजों ने भारत में भी तो आउटसोर्स किया हुआ था अपना वॉर, हिंदुस्तान के सिपाहियों को तो थोड़े मरते थे। एनीवे, पर अभी क्या चेंजिंग ग्लोबल ऑर्डर है, उसमें हिंदुस्तान की क्या जगह बन पाएगी, इस सब पर चर्चा करने के लिए, हमें बताने के लिए अपना पर्सपेक्टिव, वेलकम डॉक्टर वैद्यनाथ।
Thank you very much, Madhu ji. Delighted to be in your channel and also to address the audience of Manushi, who are, as usual, very well informed and very knowledgeable group and very perceptive in their understanding. I think maybe this is the second or third time I think I'm coming into your channel.
Yes.
I'm very glad about it, and I only hope you are also fine, because I have been knowing you for, I think, more than 10-15 years from your time of platform and our campaign, which I joined in Manushi. Okay.
Yes.
Now, today we will briefly discuss about this whole issue of the war in Ukraine, as well as the changing global alliances and alignment, and what should be our position in that. First and foremost is, not many people have observed, including those who are very perceptive, the war is increasingly not between countries. It is getting outsourced like anything. This started actually during the Iraq war itself, and many people observed it that time. And slowly, that was kept in the background. What is meant by, for instance, in the Second World War, if you remember the traditional wars, we are not talking about the old style war where infantry stands on both sides and then the drums are beaten and the king says, "Chalo, fight." Not like that. It's a sort of a modern warfare situation in Iraq. The Second World War time, there used to be a major activity called ASC in terms of procuring materials and other thing, and then delivering it in the war front, and bringing back all those unused or used material and other thing. Army Supply Corps, it used to be called. Many of my relatives used to be employed in that. Indians actually. In the wartime, they were sent to various places like Sudan, Singapore, and now this ASC used to be such a huge activity and division. Now that is completely outsourced. All the private fellows are now the ones who are running the supply chain into the battleground. Similarly, miners and sappers, I am given to understand, I am very surprised about it actually, because that is called the Thambi regiment in our parlance, from Madras regiment. That also is a lot of private people have joined, and that has been privatized. And similarly, erection of camp and food production, and so it's no more, technically a war between what you may loosely call two countries or the citizens of two countries, and even the actual people who are fighting in Ukraine. Quite a number of them are from outside. They are all, these people are all calling them as fighting for freedom and other thing. All, one shouldn't use such a word. All crap or bullshit. They are all mercenaries who are there for huge sum of money. And, depending upon the location, depending upon your experience and other thing. Even one boy from Coimbatore, in his over enthusiasm, I think he went there. He told he is also joining. Later on, I was told he has come back or whatever it is. So quite a number of outside people are also joining the so-called war. Veterans and youngsters and other people. Two reasons. One is US and more so the Europe is unenthusiastic about participating in any war. This is most important. They don't want to, for instance, even in one body bag gets into JFK airport, there will be such a hue and cry. They don't want any of their citizens to be involved in this. They don't mind having processions and banners and for television purposes, condemning the war and peace is required. And all these people stand on the street and road, and some conferences are also held. A lot of phone calls are made between leaders, but not one European country wants to send its people into the actual war. They are more interested in beaches, in music concerts, and Europe has lost the will to fight any war. Let me tell you that. The average age of the Belgian army man is 43, and his belt size is also 43. So how can he fight any war? They are not. So it is a outsourced activity that we should be very clear. From the Russian side, they have not outsourced it so much as from the Ukraine side. Similarly, Iraq war was fought by the contractors primarily. They made such a hue and cry that chemical weapons are all accumulated by Saddam Hussein. They couldn't even find a bottle of sulfuric acid there. After all that, big deal. And Iraq is in a mess. Everybody knows, as much as Syria is in a mess. And so, first and foremost is increasingly these wars are getting operated or done by companies, not by this individual. And when Iraq war was there, I was in Atlanta. I was very worried. I told my colleague this, jokingly, of course, Americans are so dumb. They may not know the difference between I for Iraq, I for Iran, I for India. They may even bomb India. And my colleague told, don't worry, Nathan. They call me Nathan. Don't worry, because most of the fellows sitting before the computer console are all from your country only. So they won't, what is the happening is the war is not anymore fought on the ground. War is fought using your missiles and technology and your consoles. You sit somewhere. You may be sitting in Hyderabad, or you may be sitting in Atlanta, or you may be sitting in Alaska, anywhere. And then the war is fought in Iraq. And most of that is again outsourced in terms of the activities. The software is outsourced, the people are outsourced. And so this is something very, very interesting. No need to physically go and fight them. As in the past, you don't have to land a huge number of people, take historical movies like Dunkirk and how they landed and all these things. No need to have this at all. All wars are now computerized, and that is the reason why US won't want to enter into European wars, because European war, if you press a button and then it can land in Denmark or it can land in Germany. And let's be very, very clear. In the contemporary situation, no white man would like to kill another white man. Period. This is and you also see a pattern in this, very interesting. All those who are shouting democracy is in peril, and those who are also bullying India. Why are you not taking a stand? What stand? Quote stand only. Why should India be worried? Ukraine and Russia, let them fight it. And for instance, Yemen and Saudi Arabia are fighting. Does anyone even care about it? Number of people killed in Yemen is much larger than number of people killed in Ukraine. You think anyone discusses about it? Anyone is bothered about it? It's a huge war is going on there at that front. Periodically it stops and then it is started again. So it's all a question of whose war it is. First point, as somebody mentioned that Joe Biden will tell that I will see to it that Russia is fought to the last Ukrainians. Like in the olden time, it used to be told, one of the British commander mentioned, we will fight the Germans to the last Indian. So that is the thing. They want the foot soldiers, they want a body, no body bags in that side. So this is the first aspect of the war we should understand. We shouldn't be, carried away by it or anything like that. The second aspect of the war is much more interesting. It comes out of a talk given by 1999 at Chicago by Tony Blair. It's called the Blair Doctrine, and it became very, very famous. He addressed something like 2,500 business executives, then stock market operators, then students, professors, and it was one of the very large gathering at Chamber of Commerce of at Chicago, 1999 address, where he explicitly mentions about regime changes. He claims that, or he says that it is necessary that we should think of changing regimes if we find them to be what one can call, quote unquote, not democratic enough. So the regime change idea, which is completely opposite to that Westphalian consensus of 1648. 1648, they had all this so-called 80-year war and all bogus. 80-year no war was done. Anyhow, it's called 80-year war, and there is another war called 100-year war. It's all a question of calling it. That's all. It ran for some 25 to 30 years. Anyhow, in Westphalia, two locations they met, and then they decided that was by the church, Roman church, and they gave the more freedom to Lutherans, and and then the Germans and the French and Dutch and all of them combined together came to a consensus that the sovereignty of the nation is very, very important, and that has to be respected. Each nation has to do what it feels appropriate within its boundaries. It's not required for others to interfere and other thing. It went on and on. That was the foundation for the establishment of sovereign state and non-interference into the affairs of others. It's not required for you to say that you are not democracy enough or nothing like that. Anyhow, the Tony Blair idea of 1999 completely demolished. It was not even opposed. It was not even opposed by the others. In UK, the conservatives as well as other thinkers, they thought it's a very appropriate thing. That was in the context of Kosovo, and what he mentions is the right to change a regime should be with the civilized world. And by civilized world, I am sure he means EU and US. There is no other world which can be more civilized or less civilized. And he also enunciate 5 principles under which a regime can change. Basically, all those principles are the white man feels that you are not good enough to rule your own people. That's all. Basically, that's what it matters. He says the 5 principles are: is it all other steps have we taken? Is it required to involve ourselves with the armed forces? And whether the existing regime should be changed immediately or with some delay, on all those things. Anyhow, all that is according to me is not important. The most important is the establishment of the right to change regime by whites. So that is the basic principle. So when they can enunciate it, Russia is implementing it, right to change regime in Ukraine, because they feel that we are threatened because of the missiles are going to be kept in Ukraine. Ukraine joins this NATO, we will be under severe. It's similar to your Cuban crisis. The US was aghast that missiles are getting established in Cuba, which is sort of proximate to Miami. So this is the same thing. We should not be. And China is now telling that this four-member group, India, Japan, and this US
Australia.
and Australia. Australia, they say that it is similar to, not identical, but very similar to NATO. We are being encircled due to that. And so every country has its own way of perceiving what is the threat around it. And when once you give sanctity to the regime change by the civilized, quote unquote, civilized world, and others also can think themselves to be more civilized or less civilized, it's all a matter of measure. debate and discussion. So that is the Westphalian consensus is gone. So wars are now increasingly getting outsourced. For country like India, of course, or China for that matter, we have enough human resources, and it is not required for us to hand it over to private companies or anything as of now. And plus, we don't also have a compulsory conscription as in other some of the countries where they have 3 years of military conscription. After that, only you can go on join any company or corporate or anything. We don't have it. We have what you may loosely call army, which is basically based on the preferences of people. Those who want to join, they go and join. Because of our large numbers, that is one reason. There is adequate amount of stock which will be available. Anyhow, we are not significantly into the outsourcing mode as of now. But the other, that means what is meant by
May
outsourcing
I ask
mode
a
is,
couple of questions at this juncture, or would you rather finish and then wait for me to ask at that time?
you are talking to somebody else or?
No, no, I'm talking to you and I'm asking you. I have a few questions and
Yeah, yeah.
clarifications.
Just another few minutes. I'll
Okay,
be.
fine. I don't mind if you want to finish the whole thing and then I come in.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
You finish the whole
And
thing.
more or less, I am coming to a now. Countries like India are not so much involved in outsourcing, but what it means is kindly recognize it becomes a war between corporates, those which are capable and those which are, and it can be in any other form also. For instance, the SWIFT transaction to Russia has been banned. Many of the foreign banks have been told don't transact with Russia. So and so many other companies are also barred from what is known as sanctions being imposed by US. But Russia says it doesn't matter, and they have, I think yesterday or day before, they have announced even transaction in rubles to the, and so it is going to have a very severe type of an impact if Russian ruble, Chinese renmin, and also our own rupee combined together. And I think some of you may recall my earlier discussion, since I am one of the advocate of RIC, Russia, India, China alliance to alter the axis of the world. Anyhow, so that's going to affect Russian decision on backing up. They have also specified how many gold equivalent of rubles, and then rubles only they say they would like to transact. So this is so it's a corporate type of a warfare, and Facebook says that they will not operate in Russia. Russia throws out this Twitter, and the whole thing is extremely, and of course all other smaller thing like your Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's and other, they are all telling they will move away from Russia. So there is a, the second point is, traditionally, we used to talk about communism versus capitalism, and all that is gone now. All the the 18th, the 19th century philosophies are all dead. There is no, even China doesn't recognize itself as a communist country. That is something very interesting. The only place where Chinese are considered as communist are, there is a tea shop outside JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, called Ganga Dhaba, if I remember the name correctly. Early morning, some of these AISA, All India Students Association, that's a Nakshal outfit student. They all assembled there. Many of them are unkempt beard and very difficult to even look at. Anyhow, they all have coffee, chai there, and then they discuss about China being a communist country. That's the only place where the China is. China itself doesn't call, it calls itself as a market economy. Anyhow, the other communist countries, of course, that North Korea, which regularly sends some missiles and create lot of interest among other people. Anyhow, so that old things are gone now. Now it is a question of conflict between different civilizations. What Huntington told in 1993 is slowly coming into being. For instance, let's make look at the world map. All those who are sort of supporting Ukraine in some way or other, or condemning Russia. If you look at the map, all of them are white countries except Japan. Japan is the only one who has expressed their view on this conflict. Other countries have not expressed it. And some people want India to, we have expressed our views on all conflicts for the last 70 years. Nothing has come out of it. There is no need for us to express our views. We generally can say we stand for peace, we stand for talks and all this. Surprisingly, yesterday India has made a statement condemning the terrorist attack on Israel by the Palestinian group. First time in the last 70 years. First time India has made a statement explicitly mentioning terrorist groups of Palestine attacking in Israel. This is something dramatic. But anyhow, it's not required for us to make comments on every. Let Russia fight with Ukraine. Let them continue. Why should we be? Our interests have to be protected. If we can get oil with Russia with rubles, we will get it. That's all should be our focus or our. So you see, all those who have supported Russia, Ukraine are all white countries except Japan. Japan is considered jokingly as called a banana. That means outside yellow, inside white. Like many of the Indians are considered as coconut. Outside brown, inside white. So this Japan is not very. None of them, of course, actually is telling that we will send our people to fight or nothing like that. They are all generally telling it is we condemn, and then they make phone calls, and I think some of the phone companies would have made a lot of money in this because every day everybody is trying to call somebody else, and generally they say that Russian behavior is unacceptable, and I think we can also say what is that. So that's all is. Why I am telling this is on this side, if you see this Saudi Arabia fighting in Mali. You see the map. Nigeria, southeast portion, Mali, and Burkina Faso. This entire region is full of this what one can call jihadi groups. And Boko Haram is one of the leading group there. That's one of the whole sort of a Taliban of different variety. Taliban kills 2-3 people. Boko Haram goes by not less than 100 at one shot, one thing. So they are trying to create another Talibanized area in that whole region. And this Middle East countries are extremely worried about it. The princes and the kings and totally unelected, unelectable groups there. They are all very worried about it. And so there is a huge amount of churning is taken place in Middle East. Many people are not even realizing this. Country like Israel is sitting with Turkey. Country like Iran is sitting with this Israel. The whole thing is because they are all if there's insurgency in those locations are becoming more and more, then they will have a pincer attack. One side you have in Afghanistan, another side you have it in the this area. So it's not an acceptable situation to any of those sheikhs. And most of these Middle East sheikhs are all not that they are any popular or anything within their country. They are just there because of this support given by UK and USA long time before. And the oil wealth. And oil wealth is now getting depleted. Electric is coming everywhere, and that's a separate issue. So there is a huge amount of churning taking place in the Middle East. It's not the old Middle East what we are aware of. That we should be taking cognizance of. Most important thing. The second is lot of other groupings are also getting its moorings changed. For instance, Europe is not anymore such a unified territory as it was. The idea of Europe is, one shouldn't say that, but it is dead after the Brexit. Even today, for instance, This man went, Joe Biden went to Poland. He being second Catholic, actually. First Catholic was Kennedy. Second Catholic president of US. In the history of US, there is only one Catholic, and this is the second. They don't normally elect anybody else. Anyhow, so he went to Poland. Poland is extremely Catholic, relatively, and it is aligned with the Papal Kingdom. And then he made some statements like, Stalin, this Putin is a dictator. Putin is Islam. Even Macron and the German chancellors did not go with that. They do not want to have any conflict. Germany even today want to have the gas supplied by the Russians. And the German wants to have very good relationship with China also. They made it very, very clear. They are one of the largest trading partners with China, next only to US. So they don't want to hurt their own interest. So Europe also, every European country wants to take care of their own interest. They no more consider themselves to be put quote unquote subordinate to US. And the US is realizing that it is becoming a declining power. What are the signals? Many places, UN, first of all, UN used to be under general control of these countries. The UN has lost its. UN is just a talking shop. Nobody takes UN seriously. Let me be very blunt, except some of the Indian officials, because they will get good pension. And UN is a huge talking shop in the daytime. And in the evening, it's a big pub. It's the single largest pub available in New York. Somebody told if UN is closed, what happened? I told the liquor sales in New York will fall by at least 50%. That is it's that type of UN itself should realize that it has become redundant. It's totally useless, and many of the other bodies also, like your WHO, that Wuhan Health Organization, otherwise known as World Health Organization. That's also. Then there is another one called human rights. That's the single biggest scandal you can think of. That human rights organization consists of people like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Sudan. They are all expected to Cuba. They are all expected to what one can call moderate or regulate the human rights of the world. Anyhow, these world organizations are, and the US itself is not having anymore the glitz and glamour of the olden time. Its economy is not shining as much as that. And let's be very clear, more than 50% of the global manufacturing is taking place in China today, not in US. And China is in several dimensions. It is 19 trillion. US is 21 trillion. In another 4-5 years, China will exceed US. And let me be very blunt in forecasting. It will be the single superpower in another 5 years. To that extent, that is the way in which it is moving. And see, in all this thing, no single country, EU or US, has condemned China for the Wuhan virus. China has not allowed people to get into that laboratory. Some experts went, professors went, and some conducted tour was made here and there. And if you had been in South, the Tirupati temple, you will know what I am telling. When you go nearer to God, that fellow will say, Jaragante, Jaragante, go away, go away. See, he will not give you even 5 seconds to stand there. Lifelong you might have thought, I should see the Balaji and other. Same way China treated all these scientists. They just went to the building, they were shown the board, and then they were all packed. Even today, let me tell you, WHO has not come out categorically whether it was leaked from that laboratory deliberately or accidentally, it is from an animal type of thing, or it is the biological testing being done in the lab. Nothing has been told. Where from? Something like 50 lakh people have died all over the world. But who cares? Because let me tell you, one French professor told me, when the name China is mentioned, many of the European leaders wet their pants. This is the situation today. So in another 5 to 6 years, China will become the single. So the day of the white is going, the day of the yellow is coming. Maybe after that, there could be a day of the brown. And black, of course, might be the last one. That is how so there is a civilizational change which is taking place. Major churning is taking place in that Middle East. So that, what is that, some 125 kilometer, I think, 120 or 125 kilometer square area called Jerusalem. That patch of land, which is, 1/7 of my city, Bangalore, 2000 years people are fighting. 3 brothers are fighting. And something like 500 million have died. Including yesterday, some 7 fellows have died. And those 3 brothers have a audacity, particularly the 2 latest brothers, have the audacity to talk about peace and the way in which you should behave and other. You can't solve this 125 kilometer area destiny for not 1 or 2 years, nearly 2000 years. So, the way 500 million people have perished fighting for that. Nothing more or nothing less than that. My hunch is, because of this churning, something could take place on that front also. Whoever thought the terrorism between Ireland will come to a reasonable end. It's not that completely gone, but significant end between the IRA. Of course, they were never called a Catholic terrorist. This is something very important. The terminology used is most important when you discuss or when you debate about a particular situation. They were always called in terms of what one can call the Irish Republican Army. Correct name for them will be Catholic Terrorist Front. They never was told, but it got sort of. Similarly, I have a vague feeling, given the churning which is taking place and the sheikhs and kings and other things are all extremely worried. It's writ large in their face. You see this MBS, the head of the Saudi Arabia. You see his face. It's writ large on his face that he is very worried. Then he says, no, women can walk. And then all the Western press is very happy. He is allowing women to walk, and major reform in Saudi Arabia, where women are allowed to walk on their feet. Till then, I think they were not walking. They were walking on their hands, perhaps. So these are the gimmicks he is trying to do. But it'll the churning is such a big one. He has to deal with this the grouping which is coming up in Yemen, and I told you those adjacent places. It's not going to be an easy task. So 4 things we have to be very alert. Wars are no more between 2 big countries and other. Don't ever, it's not, unfortunately, it's not like the old time where you take the AK-47 and shout Bharat Mata ki Jai and then try to attack the other. You attack the other fellow will say some company, corporate Jai and other thing. That's all. That is one. Wars are, and the second is wars are not encouraged to be physical anymore, because none of the white want to get in dirty their hands. It's always the brown and the black and others who have to fight the wars. Now it has become much more because of this issue of outsourcing and other. Second. Third thing is, it is, it's crystal clear, this current difficult conflict between Ukraine and Russia, who are all supporting Ukraine. You see the map of the world, all whites except Japan. Everybody else is either keeping quiet or they have their own worries and concerns, and they are not, except our television channels, I think 22 hours out of 24 hours is spending time on this. They are telling it's a world war, and in our new world lies between Ukraine roads, and the world is much, much larger than this. Anyhow, so that is the third thing. Fourth thing is, as I mentioned, the Tony Blair theory of regime change. The quote unquote civilized countries feel They have every right to change regimes. You have to be very cautious and alert about it. Why should they change regimes? Because they feel they are civilized and others are not adequately civilized. So we have to be, who is going to decide? Obviously, the white man will decide. And these global institutions are losing their relevance. All the institutions are either ridicule or just, they are nobody. I don't know if you conduct a quiz, who is the head of the UN. I don't know how many kids can answer that even, including some of the bright kids of India. This is the situation where we have landed ourselves in. So, what is our interest is very simple. Let's not try to dabble into all these type of cross currents, and exporting democracy is not our cup of tea. Nobody has assigned us the role of we should export democracy or anything. And US, let it say whatever it want to say. We don't have to mind too much about it. Actually, yesterday they have told you can't buy oil in ruble, and they are, it's the US should realize times have changed. India of 2022 is not same as India of 1961 or 1965. This is something which so we should exclusively and explicitly mind our own interest, our own business. If anything is not in our interest, I think we shouldn't care about it. And this self-righteousness and all this bunkum, we should give up. That, we can go on telling nothing wrong about it. Peace is important, non-violence is important, and all that thing. Everywhere you can tell that nobody, this is like apple pie and motherhood. Nobody is going to object to it. If you say that peace is most important, I also agree with that. But beyond that, don't do anything. Beyond that, don't do anything. Just see, does it help our interest? In the current context, I would definitely say the stand of government of India is very good. No need to condemn Russia. Why should we condemn Russia? And generally, no need to be antagonistic to Ukraine also. Let them fight it out. Whoever is, and as long as our, for instance, if we can export a huge amount of food grain and get some, extra return out of it, we should do that. Large number of countries are, eagerly waiting for food grains because Ukraine is surprisingly one of the major bread basket of the world actually, and now they are not able to supply. We can take advantage of this, and we should be alert, and unnecessarily we, according to me, we don't have to join all this front and containing China and other things. That's not containing China is not our cup of tea. Why should we contain? And as much as they don't want to contain us or anything, leave it at that. So this is what I would rather think of. I would rather suggest, and our strategies and our plans should be based upon the changing world situation, not the old rhetoric of the Cold War and all these things. They are all gone actually. Nor the rhetoric of communism versus capitalism, and neither of that is prevailing anywhere. And that's all I would say.
Okay,
And
now very quickly,
thanks.
I'm going to a series of questions, and those in the audience who've been commenting, you have to get on to the super chat if you want to ask a question, because I cannot be scanning through all your comments and then selecting. Okay, very quickly, one at a time, so you can give me short answers and we can cover the 10, 12 questions I have. One is, you talked about the fact that war is no more being fought through armies. It's all digitalized. It's all remote control, etc. Why is India not doing that? Why are we losing so many soldiers? Or are we on way to do that?
You mean why India is not doing a remote controlled war? Yeah, some more years it might take. Not that it is not capable, but it has to come out of its what you may loosely call the self sort of control. or rather, let's not do this way and other thing, right? Two people recently were killed in the streets of Pakistan who were involved in quite a long time before, actually, if you
Yeah,
recall.
yeah.
So, like that, we have to, it takes time for us to A, formulate, B, create assets in other places, and,
No,
correct
but
location.
digital war just means sitting in the control room in Bangalore or Hyderabad and just pressing buttons. The world is
Correct.
doing that. Why is
Yeah.
India not yet ready for that?
We may be doing it in a couple of years, perhaps. We
Okay,
have to
sure.
come out of that self-restrained mindset.
Okay. Now, you talked about regime change agenda and you attributed it to Blair, the Blair Doctorate. But from the history of recent decades, it's clear regime change takedari has been America's. They are the global policemen. They have changed regimes and they have decided it's their job, not even the white world, not even the Christian world, but the Americans. Now, how do you put disproportionate credit? Why do you give disproportionate credit for this to Blair? And you didn't even mention, one second, just let me finish. Because there was a time that America used to do regime change in other countries. For the first time, we witnessed it did it in its own country in the manner in which it dealt with Trump. And even Putin seems to have responded not so much to Ukraine joining NATO, but the openly declared agenda of Biden that Putin has to go. A regime change in Russia. Am I right or not?
You are right.
And
You see, the Americans have always been acting for regime change, but the British are much better in enunciating the underlying theoretical proposition. This is very important. American jump into the action. They send the soldiers, but the British give you the what one can call the outcome of the research project. So that is why the Tony Blair theory I took it up. Not that before Tony Blair also theory also regime change Americans were doing it. There is no, but he provided what you may call a good template or a justification for doing it from a quote unquote civilized country's perspective. That's all, nothing more.
no, but to my mind,
Like for instance,
the story of American decline is comes out so poignantly in the manner in which they did regime change within Trump. Because prior to this, no matter what, Americans stood together, the Republicans and the Democrats, on certain basic fundamentals. They were always together. This time they fought like they were enemies and to exterminate literally the manner in which Trump has been put away. Short of assassination, what they've
yeah,
done to Trump is amazing. So it shows that the whole game seems to be boomeranging. And what I fear is this, that after Putin, and Putin has retaliated to this threat of regime change, the target, the most consistent target is Pradhan Mantri Modi. No matter how many world leaders he goes and hugs, they seem to be all in unison that he must not be allowed to have a stable tenure, and I'm sure Yogi will face bigger problems in case he turns out to be the next prime minister. What do you have to say to that?
yeah. One is first about US. See, US traditionally till the Trump time or slightly before that, traditionally used to have what I call the Republican Democrat and Democrat Republicans. That is, in the Democrat Party, there were always some people whom you can consider as Republican actually, who could. And similarly, in the Republican Party, so this Republican Democrat and Democrat Republic, they were actually together and they were running the government. or rather governing the US in terms of a, but slowly that has got broken over a period of time because of all these, the left liberals and various. So even a minor deviation, you are immediately pulled up or condemned in the sense, uh, in our language, no roti beti relationship. If you are a Democrat and a Republican, there is no type of a, in India, two states only have this politics. One is Punjab, other is Tamil Nadu. You can't stand the other guy. Even if it is marriage or even if it is death, you won't go. So this has broken their system. What one can call the conciliation or consensus which used to be there got broken down. For instance, even in India before Indira Gandhi emergency, there used to be a lot of conciliation and consensus between Congress and the other groups of opposition. But she sort of, by her act and other thing, demolished it. That is one. Second is, regime change in India is not as what one can call easy as in other countries. First of all, there is no, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever way you look at it, a single group to replace the existing order. There are something like recently, I think 38 parties combined together and other. Basically, I call it as F20. 20 families are running this opposition space. See, except four parties in India, BJP, Communist, this what you may loosely call BJP, Communist, and ADMK. All others are family parties. Let's be
No, we
very
are
clear.
talking about, is India target of regime change or not? That's the question.
I don't think so.
Well, I personally feel that's a big agenda, but we'll let go. I've raised the question, you've given an answer. Now let's get on to something else that you mentioned. You talked about the fact that the left influence in American politics has broken that consensus or the balance, delicate balance that used to exist between Republicans and Democrats on at least basic issues, especially foreign policy issues. And its collapse, to my mind, is not so much to do with left, because left itself is now propped up globally by Islamists. It's the growing influence of Islamists that have completely taken over US politics. And Biden is a living, walking cadaver of that politics. I mean, you bring literally not even a fully alive person. He looks and talks like a cadaver. You position him as president of the most powerful so-called uh, democracy or whatever in the world, or military power in the world, but they become hostage, complete hostage to Islamic agendas. And that's why they're so hostile to India. We are the ones who are always wrong. We are the ones who are committing human rights abuses. So, to my mind, the manner in which they all gang up, and the propping up of Kejriwal, to my mind, is a clear sign and symbol of the regime change agenda. He's been groomed as the next prime minister. Take it from me. That's what's brewing.
See, this Islamist influence is obvious actually. Even in UK, for instance, the UK, particularly the Labour Party, the left wing. You see, the left all over the world is very much influenced and aligned with Islamist. Even the recent United Nations resolution on the Islamophobia was supported by many in the left actually, right? And very interestingly, if the Islamists take over, as in Turkey, Indonesia, Iraq, and various other countries, the first one who will be put inside jail will be the leftist. This
Yeah,
is
very
something
good.
very
I'll
obvious.
celebrate. मैं तो दुनिया भर में लड्डू बांटूंगी अगर वो होता है. They
No,
deserve
no.
to be
The,
shot.
they are like, I always call the leftist as like a moth going into the fire.
Yeah,
Who
but they
was
don't get to
hanged
their
and
job, they're killing
who was
others.
hanged and
They're being
left on the
killed.
road in Afghanistan? Najibullah. He was the left leader by the Taliban. Taliban hates this leftist. Anyhow, the influence of Islam is, I am telling you, will be having its own altered situation in the context of what is happening in Middle East, and
Yeah.
that will also have a interesting development in Kashmir. I am telling you, the Middle East is in turmoil. People are not realizing it. The
No, no,
jihadis in Yemen, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Southeast, that whole region is creating such a worry for this sheikhs of Middle East.
they cannot really kick out Islam, at least not in the foreseeable future. So long as you stay anchored in Islam, you have to be endorsing jihad in some form or the other. But we'll leave that because I have many more questions to ask you. Um, you've said that Europeans and Americans have lost the will to fight, no doubt about it, and they get upset even if one body bag arrives on one of their airports. So they're outsourcing. And American Army, that's one reason why American Army has so many Indians now. You know, our Indians feel so proud, our Sardarjis feel so proud we're in the American Army as though they've arrived at some high status. Oh no, they're using you as hirelings, as sepoys. They don't want to kill their own. So earlier blacks used to be, now even blacks are not keen to opt, the American blacks. So it's the Indians and the Asians and the whatever. And so it's not really good for our people to be so happy about joining their army. But the point I'm making is while they have lost the will to fight, the Islamists have actually become far more militant and more determined. No matter what the churnings in the Middle East, but all these jihadis of the world, starting with Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, Turkey, I mean, their entire range, they're ready to kill and die no matter what it takes, all for the greater glory of Islam and Allah. And so, who's going to give them a fight? The only country that can have both the manpower and the will to fight is Bharat. Not even within it, not the Muslims within Bharat, but mostly Hindus who are now waking up. But they hate us so much that they're not willing to ally. They spit on us all the time as fascists. They're calling us fascists when they're facing real fascists in their own lands. What do you say to this madness?
One point I would like to mention, I think this has been highlighted by Bernard, this French philosopher. See, the more Muslims have been killed by Muslims than non-Muslims. So do not, try to make it into a unified whole. The difference between them is acute, and it is not. So who is going to fight all these jihadi forces? Don't. They are not going to come in a single unified form at all. And the churning in the Middle East, I am telling you, because the aim of the Taliban will be to capture the land of the two mosques. That will be the ultimate aim of all of them, actually. Whoever controls the land of the two mosques will control the entire Islamic world. That's the idea behind it, actually. So it's not going to be easy, and I would rather like to use the word of Bernard that auto cannibalism will, what one can call, terminate this whole issue. Wait and
You mean
watch.
they'll kill each other?
Huh?
They'll kill each other?
History has showed you. Number of people killed by Muslims, of Muslim, is much, much greater. See the entire Middle East. The Syrian conflict, Iraq-Iran conflict, and any number of things. Except in the days of the Crusade and Andalusian Empire, post that it has always been the fight between one set versus other set of Muslims. Anyhow,
Well, it's the best news you've given, and the world has something to look forward to if they cannibalize each other. I just hope this turns out to be true, because otherwise, there's no one ready to fight them. So they have to self destruct. That's our only hope, it seems. Now, another question that I have from you is this. You yourself said that as compared to Ukrainians, which have outsourced the war largely, and Europeans are not sending any troops because they don't want one body bag coming. And also, of course, Ukrainians have abandoned their country. They're not fighting, staying back to even fight. That's quite telling. More importantly, the Russians seem to be charged with this patriotism and desire to rebuild that empire, the Russian Empire, which was once Soviet Union. Um, it seems to me that they are also now vying for superpower status because America is seriously on the decline. Europe has no will to fight. It's also tottering intellectually and has no bearing, really, no clarity in its politics. But Russia and Putin seem to be very clear sighted and charged with this, identity politics, nationalist fervor. Would you agree with that, or am I reading too much?
no, you are in one sense right, but most important is Russia is demographically shrinking as much as Japan. Today we are in 22, right? In another 5 years, Russia will have only 85 for 100 people. 15% of Russia won't be there. Russia is in dire straits from that point of view. And Japan, of course, is in much more dire straits. Japan doesn't allow migration also. That is another issue. Russia, even if it allows, nobody is going to go and settle down there, given the nature of the environment, climate, and all those things. So, Russian problem is, as it is called, demography decides the destiny. So, howsoever they may be extremely enthusiastic, another thing. And unfortunately, or whatever we look at it, the demographic growth is in those areas of Russia where there are more Muslims. And that is a matter of minor growth, not a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
significant type of a growth. So, the only country which, as of now, is in a position to be a global superpower is China. Let's be very clear about it. China is also facing demographic thing, but given its size and other thing, it will have an impact around 2050 or so. Significant impact in terms of its demographic profile and problem. Because currently, for instance, there are a lot of people are not getting married. Postponement of marriage age. So many things are taking place in China, but all that will have impact not immediately. So till 2050, 45, 50, you can easily say from around another 5 years, China will be the SSS, single superpower.
There are two, I would add two riders to it. Number one, even China, because of single child family system that they enforced, people don't want to lose the only child they have. And the Chinese regime realizes that if they send these single child, or एक ही जो बच्चा है उसको भी if they send to war and comes back dead, then the regime will be very fragile. So they're not itching for a military engagement. They are doing bullying jobs through manipulative tactics, um, capturing economies through aid, capturing economies through power play in the way they've done, say, with Nepal or in with Pakistan. But more importantly, they seem to be facing a lot of internal contradictions because uh, at one level, the fact that a lot of Chinese youngsters also not marry, not producing children, all this is coming from the West. We like it or not, the West has managed to uh, attack and destroy family system and family culture in every society whose culture it has touched or uh, influenced in any way. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I agree with you. But what I want to say is a lot of demographers and actuarial people have discussed this matter. The full impact of it will be felt only around 2050 in China. Given the, these are futuristic thing, so it will take another 30 years at least for it to be. For instance, the post contraceptive US, that is 1956, it started, but the full impact was felt only around 1992, started actually, and the decline in fertility rate and other. So China does have these issues, and as I say that the full impact of it, unless there is a reversal, will be felt only in another 30 years later, not now.
Okay, now we'll take a question that came from Ridul Sohal. Will you please put it out on the screen? This came through Super Chat. Ashish, civilizational states of Bharat and Russia easily create a balanced world order by coming together and limit USA NATO to an acceptable level. What are your views on this?
Yeah,
I
this
think
I
we
think.
need to put this question on the screen so
Yeah, I
everybody.
agree. But it's not actually the Russia. It should be actually India and China that can combine together and alter the axis of the world situation. Actually, as Madhu was asking about regime change, I'm telling you there won't be any attempt at regime change, but our local fault lines can be manipulated in order to keep us at certain levels of. We have huge amount of fault lines locally. Lot of family controlled political parties who can be manipulated.
I differ with you on that, but we will leave it at that. I'm pretty certain that these fault lines are actually being engineered and exacerbated by foreign powers hell bent on regime change. I'm quite convinced. No, I'm saying let's agree to disagree, and
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
be
sure,
happy to have proven right.
sure.
Ridul, please comment live screen. Pe. Ashish, I keep telling you, are you sleeping? Admin, please bring so people can see the comment because I think I tend to agree with Ridul's comment
Right.
about Bharat and Russia more likely
Yeah.
to creating a balance
I
than.
I feel that it would be much more appropriate for Bharat and China also be part of the grouping. Then we can create a new world order. What I
Yes,
call
if
the
they
Russia,
are
India,
willing
China.
to be part of the grouping, but if they continue to prop up Pakistani terrorists against us and Nakshals against us, all kinds of destabilizing forces against India, I would love to see India and China actually resume their civilizational bonds. We have thousands of years of very close, intimate, and mutually enriching civilizational bonds. But they seem hell bent on destroying them. It can't.
Madhu, we must have 50 centers in India to know about China. China has got 16 India study centers. We don't have any center to study India, China.
We
All
don't
our
have
knowledge of
centers to
China,
study ourselves. Hello.
yeah, no, we
Professor
study
Vaidyanathan, we're
China.
not studying
There is
ourselves.
only one a small department at JNU to study China. That's all.
No,
I,
there is also Chinese studies, this thing which was based in CSDS. Then
yeah, but
slowly, but they were
my
all
point is,
chunkas of China. They
do we
didn't
have
bring you
100,
any.
500 people in India who are familiar with Mandarin? who can read and because our knowledge comes from the Wall Street Journal and New York Times and Pentagon Papers and Heritage Foundation and all these things only. Our knowledge of China doesn't come from China, whereas China knowledge of India comes from India. This I think we should
It
be
also
very
comes from what they're doing with Pakistan. That's not coming from Wall Street. That's not coming from Wall Street. It's
What is
also
that?
coming from their propping up secessionist groups in the Northeast. That's not coming from Wall Street. Anyway,
These are
I wish to see you being proven right, not me. I'd be only too happy if what you say will provide a stable world order, which is China, India, Russia axis. I, I can't think of anything better, provided the Chinese are ready. And so let's hope it happens. Any other questions, admin? If not, there are a lot of comments, very intelligent ones. We have a very, very smart viewership. I learn a lot from their comments, but since they're not
you can,
bringing us,
if there are questions, you can show it in this what is it called? Green pattern, green screen or whatever it is.
yeah, if
If
there
there
are
are
any, please do that. Otherwise, um, they've been having a very interesting conversation. As you can see, many comments are coming constantly, and some of them are very well informed comments.
your audience will be always informed.
Yeah, I learn a lot from them, and which is good. It keeps me on my toes. So I think we'll wind up because they have to come to super chat. I cannot start self-selecting. I cannot be selecting. There are too many of them, and I wouldn't know who's to select and who's to leave out, which is why we set up this super
Sangeeta
chat.
Thakur says China is not reliable. Sangeeta, don't carry those type of opinion. They are all propagated by your what do you call Wall Street and Pentagon.
Okay. Amya, welcome. Seeing you after a long time. She's been making quite a few comments also about the ongoing conflict as well as responding to the issues you've been raising. Lot of very smart comments, but you have to come through super chat even if you give 2 rupees, simply because I cannot start uh, sifting through all these comments. So with these words, unless you would like to wind up, I'll close it at this point. Thank you very much, Dr. Vaidyanathan, for your perceptive comments. And I hope India maintains its neutrality, doesn't get dragged in other people's wars. We have plenty of conflicts of our own to
Correct.
deal. And I'm glad India has maintained a very dignified poise with regard to Russia and Ukraine. Uh, and it continues in this manner. But the civilizational war, in my view, is really not between Christianity and Islam. They're two sides of the same coin. It's really between our Hindu civilization versus the rest of Abrahamics. This Abrahamic world needs to self cannibalize because they have cannibalized on the whole world for the last 2000 years. So it's time that they start now killing each other. And we can just watch the fun, and a new world order in my mind would would descend, a peaceful world order, only when the Abrahamics have of all shades have lost the game. Thank you, Dr. Vaidyanathan, and thank you, viewers, for waiting a whole hour when Dr. Vaidyanathan was not able to join us because of Wi-Fi problems in his neighborhood.
Yeah. My
And
apologies, that same most important to the audience, and because in my whole area, in this part of Bangalore, there was a what do you call this network problem,
okay,
and completely it got broken down from 3 p.m. So we have
okay.
been waiting. I somehow thought by 8 we will be able to, but unfortunately it didn't. And my sincere apologies, but they could do something about it. and now
Somebody called Yogi says he's sending a question to you in super chat. He says, wait, I'm sending super chat. So, admin, if there is a super chat comment from Yogi ji, please bring it.
Where is it coming?
We'll wait a minute. Because
Okay.
if you say wait, that means
China cannot be trusted. Again, Deepak Patel. See the amount of propaganda US has succeeded in putting it in India is unbelievable. Actually, one reason is we are genetically linked to the US. Most of our kids study in US. Most of our elders are in somewhere or other linked. The elite of India is umbilical cords are tied to US, and so they. But
survival depends
when New
on
York Times and New York Times writes some rubbish about India, people don't believe. But when New York Times writes about China, people believe it. That's something. Anyhow, it will take some more time for people to realize. Anyhow, where is the super chat fellow?
He is now sent another message. It's not going. I'm having issues. Okay, Yogi ji, next time.
Is it the actual Yogi ji or this chat Yogi ji?
Yogi. अगर आपको अभी नहीं लिखना है लिख दो सुपर चैट को छोड़ो since you've tried we'll take it on super chat not working I don't know why oh God. Strange
you can send it later no problem
if you have a question you may post it here Yogi otherwise we'll close the show just waiting for you to post it and
or Vaidya 2000 you can send it to my Gmail also I will respond.
Okay.
Or in Twitter, I am there, Vaidya 2000. So, Twitter also, you can put the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madhu, how many people I was able to talk to today?
By tomorrow morning, I'll tell you how many people have watched. Because you get the figures.
But some are enthusiastic, I think, right?
Yes, they're very enthusiastic audience, very engaging audience, and they were tuned in and responding very intelligently to what you were saying. To me, that's really more important than numbers. The quality of audience was very serious.
Genetic link. Do you mean AIT? Absolutely no. Nothing to do with AIT. I am talking in the sense of having a lot of our people there, and from the elite point of view, every 1/3 of the elite in India will have somebody in UK or USA related or some. So that way I was telling. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vaidyanathan, and thank you, viewers.
Hopefully, we will have some other time we will meet again. Okay.
Having waited 1 hour. Please do share, subscribe, and support our channel. And you can send me your feedback at editor@manushi-india.org. इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ आपसे आज्ञा लेते हैं. जय हिंद. Vande Mataram. Shubh Ratri.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.